We were all waiting for what was going to happen with LaMelo Ball. Despite leading the fan vote among Eastern Conference guards to get into the All-Star game, how is the media going to vote? How are the players going to vote? We got our answer last night. Yeah, you see the bullet point. Media. Apparently the media hates LaMelo Ball. We'll talk about all of it today on Locked On Hornets.
You are Locked On Hornets, your daily Charlotte Hornets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
It's Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free. We're available anywhere you get your podcast, and that includes YouTube. There's Doug Branson. You can find him on his Substack, everyhornetsboxscore.com. And I'm Walker Mail. You can listen to me on WFNZ every weekday from 12 to 3 p.m. Before we get to the madness, before we get to the anger, I will tell you a couple of things that we need to do real quickly. This episode is brought to you by, I'm so mad I don't even have it in front of me right now. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel, from the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. Plus, we have a new Locked On Hornets newsletter. One stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. You can sign up for free right now, LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com. Start your day with the all-new free Locked On Hornets newsletter. I'm looking at a headline on Bleacher Report. NBA fans call out LaMelo Ball, Victor Wembanyama snubs as all-star starters revealed. We needed LaMelo to get somewhere better than 7th among the media votes, except that's where he was, Doug. You had Jalen Brunson and Donovan Mitchell that got all of the media votes, basically, right? They were towards the top. They were leaps and bounds better than every other player that needed to get the amount of votes to become a starter, where LaMelo wins the fan vote. We all know that. He won the popular vote. He won the popular vote. And then
not touching it.
Maybe we stay away. But then what happens is you have the players vote, Doug, which was something that was interesting for us. We didn't know where he would be respected in terms of the voting amongst his peers. Players vote him as the third best guard in the Eastern Conference. So players, honestly, I think for the most part, showing up,
they got it right.
They did. I think they got it right. So players, they got it right on this one. The media did not, by having LaMelo 7th among Eastern Conference guards in order to be a starter for the All-Star game. 7th is low, man. Like, that's what's so frustrating about this. I don't know what the thing is for you. The thing that's frustrating for me is that LaMelo goes all the way down to 7, according to media, among Eastern Conference guards. That's what the frustrating part is to me.
You know what? I'm going to zag here, Walker. This is not going to surprise you at all. I'm going to zag. I'm going to say I'm glad he missed it. I'm glad.
Yeah, I know what you're going to say though. I'm gonna guess a take in my head. I'll tell you if I get it right or wrong. But go.
It's a time for a game of guess that take. Go ahead.
my guess is that, and I'm not even going to disagree with you all that much. My guess is that you so badly don't want to see the think pieces and the reaction from media that the All-Star game has it so wrong, and then all the Hornets are going to do is receive all this criticism. Now we're just going to be the butt of the joke, despite reaching the goal, despite getting to the finish line of what we wanted to achieve. That is only going to be met with boos from everybody that has the power to write these think pieces, to write all these articles about what's wrong with the All-Star game and what's wrong with how we decide who gets into the All-Star game. That would be something that I would agree with, but that was my guess for your take.
Judges, was not my take. My take is that I'm glad he missed it because I hope that he feels that in some way. I hope he feels slighted in some way. Like, I mean, you think about the greatest of all time, Michael Jordan, former owner of the Charlotte Hornets. What did he do? He took every slight from the media, from fellow players, from people that he invented in his head, fake people. He would invent slights in his head just to motivate himself, and that's part of why he is the greatest of all time. And while I don't condone everyone having that kind of sort of, I don't know, mental illness that comes along with feeling that everyone is slighting you, I do think that having a chip on your shoulder, feeling a little bit slighted, can power you to even greater heights. And I don't know how much LaMelo cares about this. He certainly doesn't make it seem like that on the outside, but a lot of times we hide that stuff. A lot of times we want to make people think that we don't really care what the media thinks, that we don't really care how many all-star trophies are on the thing, but we know he wants to be great, and part of greatness is counting up your accomplishments, and being an all-star, particularly being an all-star starter, is an accomplishment. And so I hope he feels this in some way, and I hope it powers him into next season.
Man, I'm glad you brought that point up. The last time we heard from LaMelo, at least in post-game presser, it was the last game at home. I was there. We talked about what it would mean for him to become an all-star starter as he was leading. He led from wire to wire among Eastern Conference guards. He was leading the fan vote the entire time. He was asked what it would mean. Man, you go back and you listen to LaMelo, Doug, I don't think he does care. I really don't. LaMelo has been genuine. I think LaMelo is authentic. That's what I do love about LaMelo. It's what you get in the media with him having the short answers. He'll have some fun with the media, even if it's going to be for a very short time. When he was asked about it, he's like, yeah, I mean, that'd be cool for my mom and my pops. That'd be cool for them. It wasn't like LaMelo. It's fine if you don't. It's just funny because clearly the Melo stands want him in, right? Like, and I understand their anger on this one for sure. Like, clearly Hornets fans that believe in you want you in. LaMelo, I really do truly. If we're just trying to psychoanalyze, if you will, I will say I don't think LaMelo cares as much as everybody else does. I don't, which is fine, by the way, but I don't think he does.
Well, here's what I hope he cares about. I hope he understands why the media did this. And so we got a few comments in the Sicko Satchel. One from Shuman of the 22nd Mullins Regiment, who said 7th in media voting. 7th? Why do they hate us so much? And then Casual Hindu of the 1st Lance Stevenson Division writes in, Chuck, speaking the truth on TNT, the media isn't watching the Hornets. Even he isn't, LOL. 3rd in player and 7th in media. It must have been close. So right. Charles Barkley, saying he maybe watched, right. He can't even remember, maybe he watched one Hornets game. And that shouldn't come as a shock.
Right. It's like we've been saying it the whole time.
Well, it's not that and I wrote the media hates LaMelo in the bullet point as just sort of an eye catcher, but like they don't really hate the Hornets. They just don't care about the Hornets. The Hornets are irrelevant. To be hated, there are teams in the NBA, good teams, that the media does hate. But it's not the Hornets. To hate someone, you have to care about them. The Hornets have fallen into irrelevancy. No one cares about them. And that's why the media did not vote for LaMelo, because it is an affront to them to have someone in the All-Star game on a team that is irrelevant. And so that's the part that I hope LaMelo cares about. It's like LaMelo can have all the gaudy stats. There is no stat that he can have, points per game, assists per game. I mean, sure, he could tick those up next season. It won't matter unless the Hornets are winning. And so here's the thing. If you're mad today that LaMelo is not an all-star starter, I implore you not to be mad at the media. And I don't only say that because I'm part of the media, but I say that because it's not the right person to be angry with. And if I don't think LaMelo is angry at anyone, I kind of agree with you. I don't think he cares all that much. But if he is in any way upset by this, he should not be upset at the media. He should be upset at the Charlotte Hornets, specifically the former version of the Charlotte Hornets, owned by Michael Jordan and general managed by Mitch Kupchak, but he should keep that same energy, and fans should keep that same energy for Jeff Peterson, Charles Lee, and Schlotkin, and demand that this team put some talent around LaMelo Ball, win some basketball games, so we don't continue to waste the career of LaMelo Ball and keep accomplishments away from him, and soon to be Brandon Miller. It would hurt him as well. I mean, imagine Brandon Miller putting up better numbers than he did this season and him missing out on an opportunity to get an all-star game in his second season because the Hornets weren't winning enough. It's time. It's time for the Hornets to find talent and let these guys get their trophies.
And it just might happen to Mark Williams. Who knows? We're going to have to figure that out. LaMelo Ball being 7th in media rank. Man, you're talking about Donovan Mitchell 1, Jalen Brunson 2. Those are your starters. And then ahead of him, Darius Garland was 3. Cade Cunningham was 4.
That's
Damian
absurd.
Lillard 5. Trae Young 6. Trae Young has a bajillion assists, but also if we're looking at the efficiency and knocking LaMelo for that, then maybe you do the same thing with Trae, except Trae Young is finishing above. LaMelo, so essentially it was LaMelo was 7th, and then anybody receiving 0 votes from the media was ranked 8th. So LaMelo, again, of anybody that was even remotely deserving, LaMelo was last in that category, and then you had everybody, finish 8th with 0 votes coming in. I agree with you. I like that take, right? I get it. You're mad at the Hornets because, the Hornets have not put a winning product on the floor in quite some time. That's totally fair. That's understandable. It's a good take. What I will tell you is when I listen to Howard Beck sit there and say that there are 10 guards better in the Eastern Conference, and then he said, I might be over-exaggerating, but it's like, yeah, man,
oh, really?
You are over-exaggerating, and I do love Howard Beck. The guy's a pillar in the NBA media industry, but that's what sucks about it is when somebody like Howard Beck and somebody of his ilk goes out there and spews this LaMelo Ball like disdain almost, where I'm sure Howard is watching some more Hornets games than Charles Barkley. I'm sure that's happening. I've already said it on the show. If Howard Beck has watched, I'm going to try to reach out to Howard Beck and see if I can confirm how many Hornets games he's watched, because I've said on this show, if he's watched more than 2, I will eat an entire hat on the hat tree. I'll pick just a random hat and I'll eat it. Boil it.
Okay.
Fry
now
it.
I hope he now I hope he has. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Bees everywhere!
All right, LaMelo Ball, he's hurt from the media. Brandon Miller's hurt because of the scapholunate ligament in his right wrist, and he's going to be out for quite some time. We finally have a confirmation on the timeline, how much time he's going to be missing. We'll get to that in just a moment right here on LOH. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. That's $300 to keep the action going. The FanDuel app is easy to navigate. The variety of bets keeps every game exciting. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. No waiting around for your winnings. Whether you're betting on your favorite team or just looking to add some extra excitement to the playoffs, FanDuel has you covered. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $300 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. More Locked On Hornets ahead. So, Doug, we found out what was keeping Brandon Miller from seeing the floor. He was out indefinitely, as the Hornets called it. But yesterday, they released a statement, and they said that Brandon Miller underwent surgery to repair a torn scapholunate ligament in his right wrist. The surgery was performed by Dr. Michelle Carlson at the Hospital for Special Surgery in New York City. She didn't even call to ask if I was willing to donate my scapholunate ligament. Whatever, Dr. Carlson. So Dr. Carlson performs the surgery. Miller will miss the remainder of the season. Updates on his status will be provided as appropriate. So it's official, Doug. We're not going to see Brandon Miller the rest of the way. It's not surprising. We knew it was going to be a serious injury. If he was going to return, then it might be in the last month, the last couple weeks of the season. And at that point, you're probably out of the playoff race, and it wouldn't make much sense to bring him back. So this isn't surprising. Still, it's frustrating to watch Brandon Miller not be able to suit up not one more time the rest of the way.
Oh, for sure, because it wasn't out of the question that he could have had a great back half of the season and made up for, I think, I don't know if I want to go so far as to call it a disappointing season up to that point, but certainly below the level that we thought he could achieve. There was plenty of time to make up those numbers. And so, yeah, it's not great to see him miss that time. Plus, it's valuable time, valuable experience that he could just take into the summer. And hope that's the real concern for me, is hopefully this doesn't eat the rehab process doesn't eat the entirety of his summer, and he's able to work on, a lot of different things as opposed to just focusing on that ligament injury. But if this were going to happen, I think it's best that it happens now, early in his career. His body is going to be able to, trampoline back into position. When you're younger, that can happen. When you're older, it's going to be a lot more difficult. But we have plenty of examples of players that have recovered from this injury and played even better in the following seasons. And the other thing that I would say is I'm kind of sensing a little bit of numbness from the fans. Like I looked over some of the comment sections on Reddit and some of the social media sites, and I haven't gotten a lot of people just sort of tearing their clothes and gnashing their teeth about this. They're just like, well, I hope he feels better soon, I guess. I mean, there's just been so many injuries at this point that people aren't even getting up into arms. We did have a comment on the Sicko Satchel from 302 of the 24th Othello Harrington division, who just says simply, why can't we have nice things?
It's a question that is everlasting for this team. I will say the reaction was much more apparent when he was announced 2 minutes after the victory. The reaction was much stronger then. I think we've come to grips with the fact that he's not going to come back the rest of the way. I think that's probably what it is. It's the surprise factor where Brandon Miller going into Chicago was questionable. Wrist soreness, I believe is what they called it. Maybe just wrist injury. I forget what the words were. But he was questionable going into that one. And then as soon as you get a victory over Chicago, a couple minutes after, Hornets PR comes out with the tweet that, yeah, this man just tore his scapholunate ligament. Scapholunate, I can't stop saying it enough, even though I hate it now. So Brandon Miller going to be out the rest of the way. Yeah, we've already talked about how to watch this team because we expected this, Doug. So I don't know what more there is to say about Brandon being out. I will say some of the effects we've seen is Nick Smith Jr. rise to the occasion. So that's one way to just pay attention to how they're going to fill the void of Brandon. Are they going to continue to go to NSJ? Is there any like real trade fodder out there? Any interest enough to give up something of value? And if that's the case, then would the Hornets want to trade somebody that's showing you nice things right now? We have nice things with NSJ. Do you want to get rid of the nice things that we finally have? So that would be tough to make sense to me right now, considering what it would take to get him. So Nick Smith Jr. playing well. Trey Mann is the other one. Just whenever he comes back. When does he come back? How does he look once he comes back? Trey Mann is going to be an interesting storyline in the second half.
Yeah, I think it's going to be important for the Hornets to balance, hey, we still want to go out there at the trade deadline and acquire some assets, get involved in some deals. But you have to balance that against the fact that you still have games to play and you still have development on this team that needs to happen, whether it's LaMelo Ball or Mark Williams. And in order to do that, in order to be able to come, even win or lose, come away from games with something to say and something to look at and something to learn from, you have to play functional basketball. You can't strip it all the way down to the studs and expect LaMelo Ball and Mark Williams to play at a high level and to again develop their own skills. And so that's where I would caution them against moving Nick Smith Jr., moving Miles Bridges, moving X, Y, and Z, and bringing back very little in return in terms of the players that they acquire. I would just say, like, there's got to be a balance there.
It's why we thought about the idea of Cam Johnson, even if it seems early. I know you're talking about a different realm of moves there, but it's why we're trying to maybe even thread the needle a little bit, because they have some talent. It's not necessarily that this team is talentless anymore. You can't say this team doesn't have any talent when they do have LaMelo, who is, an all-star, whether the media will tell you that or not. So he's an all-star. Brandon Miller, still high upside, still has that ceiling. We can talk about Mark Williams if we want to. Clearly talented. Just got to set. Just got to set the tone.
I'm fatigued. I've got Mark Williams fatigue.
Did you get it on every Hornets box score or something, or was it the podcast conversation?
No,
lasting.
I expected the YouTube comments to be heavily favored against me, but I felt like it was split pretty 50-50 on our debate. That people have feelings similar to mine. People have feelings similar to yours, and I think that's great. Honestly, I love that. I love that there is still some debate because I think it is 50-50 right now for Mark. I think he can go either way. I mean, people listen to that episode and listen to my thoughts on it and think like, oh, I just think this guy's there's no chance. And that's not how I feel at all. I think there's absolutely a chance. I just want to see it. That's all that I'm expressing. And really what I'm most interested in is looking at this media voting panel and trying to figure out who voted. 3 people voted for LaMelo Ball. Like, I would assume that Rod Boone had a vote, that he did it. I think I saw on social media that Kevin O'Conman voted for him, that he confirmed that. So I don't know if that's true or not. I just saw that at a glance. Stephanie Reddy is on this list as well. I'm not sure if she has any leftover Hornets love from her time as the sideline reporter. Man, I didn't know that DeMichael Cole, who is the host of Locked On Grizzlies, and Keith Pompey, the host of Locked On Sixers, if I had known that there were going to be Locked On votes here, I would have gotten in these guys' ears and said, hey, listen, LaMelo's been doing some crazy things, you know?
Yeah, Keith Pompey, writer first. Nice transition, by the way. Yeah, I noticed that. Let's move on. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Bees everywhere!
Sicko Satchel questions coming up next. We rummage through the satchel, and I guess I don't know if there's going to be some angry ones about LaMelo, Brandon Miller, injury stuff. You'll have to stay tuned and find out. That's in the last segment of LOH. This episode is brought to you by Talkspace. Therapy is a game changer. It can help manage stress, improve sleep, and communicate more effectively. But finding the right therapist and fitting sessions into a busy schedule can be a challenge. That's where Talkspace comes in. Talkspace is the leading virtual therapy provider. It makes getting the help you need easy, accessible, and affordable. With Talkspace, signing up is simple. You can match with a licensed therapist who fits your needs, usually within 48 hours, and it's convenient. You can have sessions from the comfort of your home and even message your therapist between appointments. Plus, Talkspace is covered by many insurance plans, and for most insured members, there's a $0 copay. It's never been easier to prioritize mental health. As a listener of this podcast, you'll get $80 off your first month with Talkspace when you go to Talkspace.com/LockedOnNBA. Enter promo code SPACE80 to match with a licensed therapist today. Go to Talkspace.com/LockedOnNBA and enter promo code SPACE80 to get $80 off your first month and show your support for the show. That's Talkspace.com/LockedOnNBA, promo code SPACE80. More Locked On Hornets ahead. Sicko Satchel time, Doug. What you got for the people?
Oh, let's see. You can put your questions into the Sicko Satchel or your comments into the Sicko Satchel at joinsubtext.com/Locked On Hornets. Sign up for a free trial, and there's still time. Get your questions, because a lot of these, man, we had some great questions in the Satchel, but they need their own segment. There was a lot of good stuff on the trade deadline, on the future outlook of this team, on the best three and worst three non-draft player acquisitions in Hornets history. Some of these are going to require some research. So we'll hold on to those until next week, but you can still get your questions in. Joinsubtext.com/Locked On Hornets. All right. This one, first one comes to us from Yo-Yo. Yo-Yo asks, why are we giving run to Seth Curry, Daquan Jeffries, Taj Gibson, Josh Okogie, and Vasa Micic from this point on? Do we gain anything by playing them if they are all most likely going to be leaving the team anyway? Is there a better plan?
Josh Okogie, Cody Martin, basically the bench players that aren't going to be here for the future. I was trying to list all those guys. Yes, I would say.
Martin was
Curry,
not on this
Jeffries,
list. It was Curry, Jeffries, Gibson, Okogie, and Vasa Micic.
I think with Curry, he actually gives you some stuff that can salvage you in the half court. Like, Seth Curry will get hot. So I think if you're looking for something offensively, then I kind of like putting Curry out there. Like, yeah, are you trying to field enough depth to play basketball? Like now, So Nick Smith Jr., right, and Cody Martin, you got to have, and I guess Diabate is his other guy. Yeah, I don't know. Micic is fine. Like, Micic just, it's tough to justify any minutes for him. I think Daquan Jeffries shows you some like small ball five stuff if you want to run small and put him at the center position. So like that's kind of interesting. Seth Curry is the other one too. I don't know. I could see minutes for all of them. How do you feel about this?
Well, the answer is bodies. I mean, you got to have bodies out there. You can't play low. I don't want them playing LaMelo 40 plus minutes a game. I don't want Charles Lee all of a sudden going Tibbs and playing Mark Williams and LaMelo Ball 40 plus minutes and even Bridges and just wearing out the tires there if you expect to hold on to him for next season. I don't want that to happen. So it's a bodies question. Oftentimes it's a matchup question. Like, why do we see Seth Curry out there sometimes and we don't see him other times? Why do we see Micic out there and we don't see him some other times? A lot of times it's matchup based and just given what the team throws out there. So that would be, on the Gibson front, I mean, we haven't seen a ton of him anyway. We're probably just going to see a lot more Musa as the season goes on. But you saw against the Grizzlies where that leads you sometimes if you're playing undersized 5 for big minutes against bigger teams. So I think the thing that you gain by playing them is by not playing your stars huge minutes, and you do get to some level of functional basketball by playing veterans like Seth Curry, who just know where to be. Because I guess this question is really asking, why not bring Tijon back from Greensboro and play him big minutes? And to me, the answer is what I said to close that last segment, which is you've got to play functional basketball, and that requires players who understand where to be on both ends of the floor, so that there's not these situations where LaMelo is turning around to Coach Lee and being like, what do you want me to do? Like, I can't move the basketball because guys aren't where they're supposed to be.
All right, what's the next question?
Evan asks, do you think we can win a chunk of these games on our homestand? And if we do you think it changes how we handle the trade deadline?
So in this question, this reminds me of Mitch Kupchak a few years back when the Hornets were above 500. And in fact, not only above 500, but remember when they were 4th in the East halfway through the season, when it was Gordon Hayward and it was LaMelo Ball's all-star season and it was Terry Rozier playing well. And Mitch Kupchak told you, I didn't want to operate at a level and fall for the mirage into thinking we're better than we actually are. And they did not operate at the deadline that way. They did not go make a move to go buy all the way in and make a push for the playoffs. And then, of course, they'd get destroyed in the play-in. We know how it ends. This team, okay, this team is not 4th in the East right now. If they win a significant chunk of these home games, then, Doug, guess what you have on the other side of that? You have 9 road games immediately after. You do not play at the Spectrum Center after this next 9 home games in a row. You do not play at the Spectrum Center for another 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks or so. Like, you're approaching it's actually ridiculous the way the schedule sets up from here on out. I don't know if we'll ever have.
Let me spell it out for folks real quick. Right. So you have 9 home games coming up. Yeah. Followed by 9 road games. So I've got that count right. Yes. 9 home games followed by 9 road games. And that's a result. It wasn't always like that. That's a result of the LA games getting rescheduled. The Lakers game, because it was supposed to be, I think, 9 at home, 8 away. And then that LA game got rescheduled into February 19th, I think.
Well, so right.
So now it's 9 home, 9 away, and then followed by 5 at home, followed by 4 away.
Oh yeah,
crazy.
it's just back and forth. It's back and forth. One real question about this is I wonder if players actually get used to this a little better. Maybe I've asked this on this or Wes and Walker. I forget what show at this point. But I made the point of I wonder if it's better because you're not going back and forth. You're not going 2 at home, then 1 on the road. Like, you know what you're in store for a long time when you stay here in Charlotte or whether you go on the road and you're just, packing a little extra in your bag. The thing that's interesting, though, what makes it such a long break before you come back to the Spectrum Center is you have 3 games on the road after this homestand, and then there's All-Star break. So 3 road games, All-Star break, Lakers rescheduled, and then I guess 5 games after that on the road. So it's ridiculous. All that to say, you have a really tough schedule immediately following. The trade deadline is right there at the very end, I believe, of the homestand. And yeah, right at the very end. So you're talking about Milwaukee, February 6th, the trade deadline, last home game against San Antonio. And then there's a bunch of road games. So no, yes, I think they could win some. No, I do not think that it is going to affect the way they operate at the trade deadline, or else that would be way short-sighted, and I don't think this front office is going to fall for such foolish things.
No, yeah, I totally agree with you. Portland, New Orleans, those are winnable games. I don't think they win at against LA. Brooklyn, they play scrappy, man. I think that's going to be a tough one.
50-50, yeah.
Clippers, I'm looking at these ticket prices because I'm looking at ESPN schedule and they give the ticket prices. I'm surprised that the Clippers game, like obviously Los Angeles, that's going to be a higher sort of lower end ticket price. Says tickets as low as $68. I'm surprised that the Clippers, tickets as low as $4. That's the same as Brooklyn at $3, Washington at $6, and Clippers at $4. The Clippers are great this season, and they're a fun team to watch. They still got James Harden. Kawhi Leonard's back. Man, if you're looking for a home game to check out, to get in and see some NBA level, like playoff level talent for cheap, check out that Clippers game. I love the Clippers this season.
All right, last question. Let's finish out the Sicko Satchel. What else do you have for us?
Oh, Haley of the 12th Dwight Howard division asks, what do the Hornets have to do to get into these Paris games next year? Let's get LaMelo LaFrance to France. So
I'll tell you what they have to do.
Yeah, the NBA playing in France. Victor Wembanyama, the headline there, getting the win over the Indiana Pacers. But I think they played the Hawks are there as well.
The Hornets played in Paris before.
Yeah,
you know who they had on their roster?
I do. Tony Parker
and Nick Batum. So
and
they had two guys from France. So they have Moussa Diabate.
Two legitimate rotation players and a legend. That's the key. Like less Nick Batum, they had the legend in Tony Parker because they've got a French player. They've got two French players on the team, Moussa Diabate and Tijan Salon. But no, I don't know that a lot of French fans they would come out, but not in the way that they're going to come out for Victor Wembanyama.
This is the point, right? So you need to get a French legend or a French star on your roster. I don't know if an all-star with France in his name is the same as that. It's the next best thing. The Hornets can raise their hand high saying maybe we want to take that trip to Paris, but it's not Wemby and it's not Tony Parker / Nick Batum, who I know is beloved there, having played for a bunch of French national teams. So anyways, I think that's what you have to do. So it would be great to see LaFrance in France, though, no doubt.
Now, if Salon has a breakout sophomore campaign, then I could see Charlotte being involved in something that happens 2 seasons from now. But yeah, I don't think there's much chance of them going overseas next season, but the season after that. Let's go, Salon. Get on.
A trip to France depends on you, Tijan. Come on, deliver in Greensboro, then deliver with the big boys. That'll do it for Locked On Hornets. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free and available anywhere you get your podcast. That does include YouTube. We're done with the questions, right, Doug? Did you have anything else that you wanted to say in the third segment, or did you want to move on and then just recap everything on Monday?
Well, I just want to say we've got a lot of great, if you haven't gotten your questions in, join subtext.com/Locked On Hornets. Let me know because we've got a lot here. We're going to get to it next week. Someone canceled their season tickets and they gave me a long screed as to why, and I think it's really important. And I want to dedicate an entire segment to the future outlook of this team as it pertains to investing your money into the team. So that's interesting. And then we got a ton of stuff on the trade deadline that, again, I didn't want to just sort of throw in. As we approach February 6th, I want to really kind of give these things some time, but a lot of people curious as to what the Hornets should do, what they will do, and we'll dig into it next week.
All right, Monday, Tuesday, all those shows next week. We'll start to talk a little more in depth about the deadline. Hopefully, we're talking about some good Hornets basketball over the weekend. That'll do it for us. Thanks for making us your first listen. I'm Walker Mail. Listen to me on WFNZ every weekday from 12 to 3 p.m. Have a great weekend. We'll be back with you on Monday.